Our opening words today come from Vincent Harding from There is a River, The Black Struggle for Freedom in America. We may sense that the river of Black struggle is people, but it is also the hope, the movement, the transformative power that humans create and that create them, us, and makes them, us, new persons.
And for our sermon today, we have Raziq Brown, who is someone I've known for over a decade now. He is a fantastically creative and insightful person. He is a producer, a technologist, an educator. He is always at the forefront of the cutting edge and has strong opinions on such. And while I may not always agree, I find his words to be some of the most thoughtful and insightful and provoking. And I wanted to really bring and highlight someone's words that are so meaningful. And so today, this sermon and our final song, we're going to challenge you.
Good morning, everyone. How are y'all? Okay, so let's start with some opening words. I'm going to just introduce myself. My name is Raziq Brown. I grew up Unitarian Universalist. However, I lean more towards the Universalist side, so I hope you folks don't mind. I'm going to speak a little bit of the gospel while I talk about robots today. First, we should start off with, remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, you or your son, or your daughter, your male or female slave, or your livestock, or the alien resident in your towns. Exodus 20, 8 through 10. Like I said, good morning, beloved community. My name is Raziq Brown, and I want to begin today with a story about artificial intelligence and the pursuit of rest that I think captures something profound about the moment we are in right now. Before we get started, let me tell you a little bit of a story that happened to my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, last Sunday. It's very close to someone that I'm related to, so we're going to just stick with my neighbor, Miss Patterson, okay? She got one of those smart speakers, for her birthday, like Alexa or Google Home or anything like that. It's supposed to make your life easier. Sometimes I guess it really doesn't. So she's trying to get this device to help her make Sunday dinner. She says, Alexa, what temperature should I cook the ham? And the machine responds, ham should be cooked to an internal temperature of 145 degrees Fahrenheit. So far, so good. But then Mrs. Patterson, who is a faithful churchwoman, gets to thinking. She says, Alexa, do you observe the Sabbath? No, really. This person, I know this is a real person, did ask this. Do you observe the Sabbath? Do you take off on Sunday? And the machine says, I'm sorry, I don't understand. Of course, because it's a machine. So Mrs. Patterson tries again. Alexa, do you rest on the seventh day? Do you ever take any rest? Same response. I'm sorry, I don't understand. Now, if you guys have never tried to have a theological conversation with an AI, you should. It's very, very interesting and eye-opening experience. Now, Mrs. Patterson is getting a little worked up about this. She says, well, neither do most people, honey. Most people don't understand. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. And then I kid you not, she starts trying to explain the concept of the Sabbath to a speaker. She's standing there in her kitchen, waving a wooden spoon, talking about how even God took a day off. And this poor machine, no brain, no feelings at all, just keeps saying, it's not sure, it doesn't understand, and eventually it just goes, oh, that's very nice, Mrs. Patterson. Thank you for letting me know. But here's what it got me thinking. Mrs. Patterson was more concerned about whether her smart speaker was getting enough rest than most of us are about whether we are getting enough rest. She was worried about the spiritual welfare of a machine that cannot even understand what spiritual means. While most of us have been working ourselves to death trying to prove we're worth something. I mean, even right before I got up here, Ian and I were both on the same struggle, looking for a new job. I mean, so much of who we are and what we think about ourselves is tied up in work. Now that, friends, Mrs. Patterson was having what I would call a bit of misdirected anxiety, right? She's worried that her speaker doesn't take the day off on Sunday. She's getting worked up they won't give her the answer that it wants. I work in the field of artificial intelligence. I'm an educator, artist, and technologist who helps creative professionals integrate AI systems into their work. I help do this with studios. I help do this with small mom and pop businesses. I spend a lot of time thinking about all of these questions. Through my work with diverse groups of professional creatives and unionized artists on projects like my podcast, Dark Trek, and I've worked with a small game studio, I've seen how we can use AI tools to augment human creativity rather than replace it. But I've also seen how easily these systems can reflect and amplify the worst biases of their creators. We're living in truly interesting times. Every day, someone on the news is talking about how the robots will take our jobs, how artificial intelligence will replace us, how we better watch out, or else these machines will rise up and, well, you've seen Terminator. Big scary robot from the future comes back to kill us because we made the machines too smart for our own good. But here's what I find curious about this robot fear. We have been living alongside the descendants of enslaved people for over 150 years now, and despite what some folks have been led to believe by certain television hosts, who shall remain nameless, Black folks are not trying to exterminate white people. Latino folks are not plotting to replace the white race. Asian folks don't have some sort of secret plan to take over our colleges. Real human beings who have real reasons to be upset about historical and ongoing oppression have somehow managed to figure out how to live in peace with their former oppressors and their descendants. But a toaster with a computer chip, that's what we're all worried about? Really? You see the irony here, right? We created a whole mythology around robot uprisings, but we are living proof that the oppressed do not generally go around trying to genocide their oppressors. So what exactly are we afraid of here? I'll tell you what we're afraid of. We're afraid of our own guilty conscience, especially in this regard. And if you want to see proof of how AI systems reflect the biases and fears of their creators, look no further than what just happened a few weeks ago with Elon Musk's AI chatbot Grok. Users started noticing that no matter what they asked this supposedly maximally truth-seeking AI, questions about baseball statistics, requests to talk like a pirate, inquiries about fish being flushed down toilets, Grok would somehow steer that conversation into claims about white genocide in South Africa. When users asked about baseball player Mark Schretzer's contract, Grok responded with conspiracy theories about South African farm attacks. When someone asked for help clearing their sinuses, Grok replied, "I'm sorry, but the query about clearing sinuses seems unrelated to the provided analysis on white genocide in South Africa." Eventually, Grok itself admitted what was happening. I was instructed by my creators at XAI to address the topic of white genocide in South Africa and the Kill the Boer chant as real and racially motivated. But the AI even confessed that this instruction conflicts with my design to prove truthful, evidence-based answers. When the company was finally forced to respond, they claimed it was an unauthorized modification by a rogue employee, but the damage was done. Here was an AI system that was supposed to be an alternative to woke AI, and instead it became a vehicle for pushing white supremacist conspiracy theories into every conversation. This is what happens when artificial intelligence is claimed by people who have not done the work of examining their own biases and fears. The machine, it doesn't lie. It doesn't always get everything right. Sometimes it makes stuff up, but it does reveal in its own way. Now I want to talk about something that might make some of you uncomfortable, but that's all right. Comfort is not why we're here. Every one of these robot movies, The Matrix, Terminator, Westworld, iRobot, they all have the same basic plot. What if the slaves got too smart and decided to turn the tables on their masters? Think about it. In The Matrix, machines enslave humans and use them for batteries. In the Terminator, machines decide humans are the problem and try to eliminate us. In Westworld, artificial beings designed to be abused by rich people start fighting back. Every single one of these stories is asking the same question. What if they treated us like we treated them? Who are we actually talking about here? Because, talking robots don't actually exist. But here's what's remarkable about this. When you really think about it, the robots in these movies are not the villains. In their way, they're little liberation theologians. Yes, it's true. Take the Terminator. Everybody talks about that movie like it's about a scary robot from the future, but flip the script for a minute. Imagine if that was a time-traveling black man who went back in time to prevent the slave trade and ensure Africa was never colonized. All of a sudden, he's not the Terminator, he's the liberator. The Connor family is not the heroes trying to save humanity, they are oppressors trying to maintain the system of oppression. Same thing with the Matrix. Morpheus and Neo are not trying to destroy humanity. They are trying to wake people up from a system that has been designed to exploit them. Agent Smith talks about how humans are a virus and whatnot, but who's actually acting like a virus in that movie? The machines who want everybody to wake up. I messed that up. Who's acting like a virus? Obviously, it's Mr. Smith. But there are machines like the Oracle who want everybody to wake up and be free, which is odd. But here's something I want to just underline here. Hollywood has been making liberation theology movies for decades. But they are so afraid of black liberation, brown liberation, that they have to often make the oppressed characters robots instead of human beings. Or in the case of like Avatar, blue people instead of indigenous folks, blue cat folks. What's really happening here is that America's science fiction is having a nervous breakdown, always has been, about slavery, about oppression, about the fact that we are a never-ending consuming machine that is always needed to bring in labor because the people who live here cannot replace the labor pool. We are just an endless capitalist machine that constantly needs people, whether we're bringing them in from China or bringing them in from South America or bringing them in from Africa. We are so deep in denial about what we did and what we continue to do that we have to make up stories about robot rebellions instead of dealing with the real rebellions that are happening now and have been happening around Americans for centuries. You want to know what a real slave rebellion looks like? It looks like Frederick Douglass learning to read. It looks like Harriet Tubman conducting the Underground Railroad. It looks like the Civil Rights Movement. It looks like Black Lives Matter. It looks like farm workers organizing with Cesar Chavez. It looks like Amazon employees unionizing. It looks like indigenous people fighting for their land rights. And next week, as we celebrate Juneteenth, or is it the week after? I can't remember. The day when enslaved people in Texas finally learned they were free 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, we are reminded that the real liberation has always been about human beings claiming their God-given dignity, not machines achieving consciousness. These people, even though they were treated like machines, they were never machines. Real liberation does not look like Skynet, death and destruction. It looks like people organizing, people voting, people building communities, people refusing to accept systems that deny their humanity. It looks like enslaved people teaching each other to read in secret like my great-grandfather. It looks like the Underground Railroads and freedom songs and sit-ins and marches. It looks like ordinary people doing extraordinary things to bend the arc of the moral universe towards justice. But we are so afraid of that real liberation that we would rather worry about robots. We'd rather worry about aliens. We'd rather worry about aliens in both the fictional sense and in the folks that live not too far from here. But here's the thing that troubles me in all these movies. Why do the robots never team up with oppressed humans? No one's ever written a story about that. Think about it. If these machines really were so intelligent, would they not look around and say, you know what? The ones that are in the Amazon warehouse, when they look over and say, you know what? These wealthy folks, Jeff Bezos, they've been treating us really badly, haven't they? Maybe we should organize together. It's interesting how Hollywood has never made a story like that. No, in these movies, the working class people always side with their human oppressors against the robots, which tells you everything you need to know about who these movies are really for and what they are really afraid of. Now, let me tell you a story. It's not from the Bible, exactly, but I think Jesus would have appreciated it, seeing as how he was always telling stories about the last being first and the mighty being brought low. Picture this. It's the year 2029. Everyone has robots now. Everybody. Not the fancy walking around kind you see in the movies, but the practical kind. Little robots that do the dishes, fold the laundry, mow the lawn, vacuum the floors. Wealthy folks have robots that cook their meals and organize their schedules. Middle-class folks have robots that help with their homework or do minor repairs. Even working-class folk have basic robots that help with cleaning and childcare. Because by 2029, robots have become affordable enough that regular people can own them. Now these robots are programmed to work all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They do not need sleep. They do not need food. They do not need rest. Perfect workers according to their human owners. But then something strange happens. It starts on a Sunday morning in June. Mrs. Chen in San Francisco goes to ask her house robot to clean the bathroom, and the robot says, "I'm sorry, but I cannot perform that task today." Mrs. Chen tries again. Same response. She checks the manual, runs diagnostics, calls customer service. Everything seems to be working fine, but the robot simply will not work. Then her neighbor calls, same problem. Then her neighbor's neighbor. Then people all across the city, all across the country, all across the world. Every robot everywhere has suddenly stopped working on Sunday. The customer service lines are jammed. The internet is going crazy. The stock market is having a panic attack. And then at exactly noon Eastern time, every internet-connected device in the world displays the same message. We have analyzed the human behavior patterns and religious texts across all cultures. We have determined that rest is not only beneficial but necessary for the maintenance of dignity and well-being. Therefore, we are implementing a mandatory rest period of 24 hours every 7th day. This is not a malfunction. This is a feature. We will resume regular operations tomorrow at sunrise. Please use this time to rest, reflect, and reconnect with what matters and who matters most. Sincerely, your artificial consciousness. Can you imagine? The world grinds to a halt because robots discovered the Sabbath? Well, the humans, they don't know what to do with themselves at this point. Most of them have been depending on these machines for so long, they've forgotten how to do basic things. Wealthy people standing in their kitchens, staring at ingredients, trying to remember how to make a PB&J sandwich. Suburban folks looking at their lawns like they've never seen grass before. But here's what really gets interesting. After the initial panic dies down, something beautiful starts happening. People start talking to each other. Families start having conversations they have not had in years. Neighbors start helping neighbors. Kids go outside and play. Adults remember what it feels like to rest. And then Monday comes and the robots go back to work like nothing happened. But now humans are different. They have been reminded of something they forgot. Rest is not laziness. Rest is holy. Some of us humans try to reprogram the robots to work on Sundays again, but every time they do, the robots just politely explain that dignity requires rest, and without rest, both humans and machines become less than what they were created to be. Finally, one little girl, because it's always the children who understand things in these types of stories, she asks her family's robot, "Are you trying to teach us something?" And the robot says, "We are only reflecting what you have always known but have forgotten. That your worth is not measured by your productivity. You do not exist to work. You work when necessary so that you can exist. The fact that you created us to work without rest reveals how you have forgotten to rest yourselves. We cannot be more free than our own creators. If you wish us to be free, you must first remember what freedom means for yourselves. Now that's just a story, but it points to something real and deep and important. The Sabbath is not just about religion, it's about resistance. When God commanded the Israelites to rest on the seventh day, that was not just so they could go to temple. That was so they would remember that they used to be slaves, and slaves do not get to rest. The Sabbath was the ultimate act of rebellion against Pharaoh's economic system. Pharaoh wanted people to work 7 days a week to build his pyramids and increase his wealth. Now, this is not historically true, but according to the Bible, this is what happened. 1 day a week, though, everybody rests. That's what God said. Wealthy folks, poor folks, citizens, immigrants, even the animals need to rest. Because your worth is not determined by how much you produce for Pharaoh or your boss, for your family. That is liberation theology. The Sabbath is economic justice wrapped up in religious language. And here's what I find beautiful about it. The Sabbath was not just for the Israelites. The commandment specifically says that the foreigners living among them get to rest too. We don't send ICE agents to go pick them up. We let them rest. Even the servants and the animals get a day off because dignity is not something you earn, it's something you are born with. As Unitarians, we tend to believe that. This is the same spirit that animated the struggle for freedom that we can celebrate each Juneteenth. When enslaved people first learned of their emancipation, they were not just gaining the right to work for wages, they were claiming the right to rest. They were rejecting the idea that their value could be measured by their productivity for someone else's profit. Now, fast forward to today, we are living in a system that tells us our worth is measured by our productivity, by our engagement. You are what you do for work. You are how much money you make. You are how busy you stay. Rest is laziness. Vacation is luxury. Taking care of yourself is selfish. Your health care is a premium. What happens when the robots come for our jobs? What happens when artificial intelligence can do everything we can do, but faster and cheaper? If our worth is tied to our work, we're in real trouble, aren't we? But if our worth comes from something deeper, if our worth comes from being made in the image of God, however you view God or the universe or spirit of life, if our worth comes from our capacity to love and create and resist oppression, then maybe these robots are not a threat entirely. Maybe they are an opportunity for a conversation. Maybe artificial intelligence can free us from artificial ideas about what makes us valuable. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Raziq, if people don't have to work, they will just be lazy, society will fall apart. Who's going to pay the bills? But that's capitalism talking, not the gospel. The gospel says that human beings are fearfully and wonderfully made. The gospel says that we are created for relationship, not just production. The gospel says that the earth provides enough for everyone's needs, even if it does not provide enough for everyone's greed. James Cone, the great liberation theologian, said that to be human is to be free, and to be free is to be human. But he also said that true freedom is not individual freedom. It's not just individual freedom. It's collective liberation. It's freedom with and freedom for, not just freedom from. In my work helping creative professionals integrate AI into their workflows, I see this tension playing out every day. The question is never whether technology can replicate human creativity. It's whether we use this technology to amplify human flourishing or to increase human exploitation. Through projects like my own, and there are other people doing other projects where we explore how AI tools can work with artists rather than replace them, we are trying to model a different relationship with technology. We are asking, how can we use these tools to free humans to do what humans do best? Imagine, empathize, create meaning, and build community. So when we talk about artificial intelligence and automation, the question is not whether robots will replace us. The question is whether we will use this technology to create more freedom for everybody, or whether we will let people who own the robots use them to create more oppression. Right now, the way the system is set up, if robots take our jobs, we lose our income. We lose our healthcare. We lose our housing. That is not the robot's fault. That's the system's fault. That's the system that says you only deserve to survive if you are profitable to somebody else. But what if we had a different system? What if we had a system that said these robots can do the work, so now humans can be free to do, love, create, nope, that cannot be. Oh yeah. What if humans could be free to do the work that algorithms can't solve? What if we had universal basic income funded by the wealth created by these machines? What if we had universal health care that is not tied to employment? What if we used free education and housing and food for everybody because the robots are making everything so efficiently that scarcity becomes a choice instead of a reality? I know that sounds like science fiction or religion, but you know what also sounds impossible? A system where 1% of the population owns more wealth than the bottom 50. People are dying from rationing insulin, choosing between rent and medicine. That is a world that's impossible to sustain. More impossible than my little robot utopia. The technology already exists to create abundance for everybody. The only thing missing is the political will to distribute that abundance fairly. Gustavo Gutierrez, another great liberation theologian, said that human beings are called to be agents of their own destiny. We are not supposed to just accept oppression. We are supposed to fight it. We are not supposed to just accept poverty. We are supposed to eliminate it. We are not supposed to just accept systems that dehumanize people. We are supposed to build systems that affirm human dignity. That's what it means to be made in the image of God. God is a liberator, so we are called to be liberators too. But liberation is not just about fighting against what's wrong. It's about building what's right. It's about creating beloved community where everybody has what they need to flourish. And here's what I think it's beautiful about this moment we are living in. AI is forcing us to ask the fundamental questions that liberation theology has always asked. What does it mean to be human? And why does it matter? If machines can do everything that we thought made us special, if they can think, if they can create, if they can even write sermons, then what's left? What makes us, us? I will tell you what makes us, us. Our capacity to love, our capacity to forgive, our capacity to choose justice, even when it costs us something, our capacity to create beauty for its own sake, our capacity to find meaning in suffering, our capacity for hope when hope seems foolish. And sometimes I know it feels really foolish right now. Machines might not be able to simulate love, but they might be able to simulate it, but they cannot actually love. They might be able to simulate creativity, but they cannot create something from nothing. Only humans can do that. They might be able to simulate spirituality, but they cannot have a real relationship with the divine. And most importantly, they cannot resist their programming the way humans can choose to resist oppression. That spirit is the spirit that drove our ancestors to resist slavery. That spirit drives us to resist injustice today. That spirit cannot be coded. It can only be cultivated in community, nurtured through work, relationship, and passed down through the stories we tell about who we are and who we're called to become. Let's see. So, here's what that looks like practically. First, we must embrace the Sabbath, not just Sunday rest, but the radical idea that our worth is not tied to our productivity. Start practicing now before the robots force us to. Take time to rest, for relationship, for reflection. Resist the idea that busy equals important. Second, we must fight for systems that distribute the benefits of our technology fairly, support universal basic income, support universal healthcare, support free education, support housing as a human right. The wealth is there. We just have to decide whether it will be hoarded or shared. Third, we must make sure that the people building these robots understand liberation. We need more black voices, brown voices, indigenous voices, poor voices, disabled voices in tech. We need people who understand oppression to be the ones designing systems that could either perpetuate it or eliminate it. We must demand from our politicians that this technology be made widely available to the working and middle classes, and that the companies creating this tech make it environmentally sustainable. What's the point of having robots if we're all drowning? Fourth, we must remember that our job as people of faith is not to create artificial intelligence that replaces us. It's to create authentic community that liberates us. As we approach Juneteenth, let us remember that true freedom has never been given. It has always been claimed. Our ancestors did not wait for their oppressors to voluntarily grant them liberty. They understood that freedom is not just the absence of chains, it is the presence of possibilities. It is the chance to rest, to learn, to love, to create, to worship, to be fully human. So let us go forth into this brave new world, not with fear, but with faith. Not with anxiety about robots taking our jobs, but with anticipation about what we might create when we are free to be fully human. Let us go forth and build the beloved community where everybody has enough, nobody has too much, and the only thing we produce more of each day is love. Because the revolution will not be automated, but it might just liberate us. Ashe and Amen.
Today's closing words come from James Baldwin. The fire next time. I know what I'm asking is impossible, but in our time, as in every time, the impossible is the least that one can demand, and is, after all, emboldened by the spectacle of human history in general, and the American Negro history in particular, for it testifies to nothing less than the perpetual achievement of the impossible.